there is a device sitting in your pocket right now, or somewhere within arm's reach, that once connected billions of human beings across every continent on Earth. But it did not begin with a microchip. It did not begin in a Silicon Valley, or a research lab, or a boardroom full of engineers in white coats. It began in the mud, beside a freezing river, in the middle of the Finnish wilderness, in the year 1865. No electricity, no blueprint for a global empire. Just a stubborn mining engineer, standing beside moving water, about to make a decision he could never fully understand the weight of. By the end of this story, you will understand exactly how that decision, made beside a river most people have never heard of, eventually placed a piece of Finland into the hands of nearly half the human population. Welcome to Empire Archives. If you love deep business stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Today, we are uncovering the story of an empire that is almost impossible to believe. A company that began with wood and water and one man's obsession, long before it ever touched a single wire, a single signal, or a single phone call. This is the story of Nokia, and it starts with the man almost nobody remembers. His name was Fredrik Idestam. Idestam was born in 1838 in a small Finnish town, at a time when Finland wasn't even an independent nation. It was a grand duchy, ruled from Russia. His father worked in mining administration, and from an early age, Fredrik was expected to walk that same disciplined path. He trained as a mining engineer, a profession built on patience, precision, and the ability to see value where other people saw nothing but rock. But somewhere along the way, his focus shifted, away from the ground beneath his feet, and towards something far less glamorous and far more valuable than anyone around him realized: paper. By 1864, Idestam had traveled quietly through Germany, studying an industrial process that almost nobody back home had even heard of yet. Instead of producing paper from rags and cloth, the expensive method that had dominated for centuries, this new technique pulled pulp directly from wood. It sounds simple today. At the time, it was a revolution hiding in plain sight. In the 19th century, paper wasn't a minor commodity. It was the internet of its age. Every newspaper, every book, every banknote, every government record depended on it. And across Europe, demand was accelerating far faster than the old methods could supply. Idestam came home from Germany, carrying more than notes scribbled in a journal. He came home carrying a plan that would quietly reshape the next 150 years. In May of 1865, Idestam secured official permission to build a groundwood pulp mill on the Tamerkoski Rapids in the city of Tampere. The location wasn't chosen for its beauty, it was chosen for its power. Rushing water meant constant mechanical energy, at a time when electricity was still years away from practical use. The mill began operating the following year. It was small, it was regional. Nobody outside that stretch of river had any reason to pay attention. But Idestam wasn't finished. 3 years later, in 1868, he built a second mill, further west, near a modest town called Nokia, on the banks of a river, known as the Nokianvirta. The logic was the same as before: more hydropower, more output, more room to grow. The Nokianvirta simply carried a stronger current than Tampere ever could. What Idestam could not have known, standing on that riverbank, was that this single decision would eventually hand its name to one of the most recognized companies on the face of the earth. Not a marketing department, not a committee, a river, and the quiet town resting beside it. By the early 1870s, Idestam's growing operation had outgrown what one man could finance alone. He needed capital. He needed scale. And that's when a close friend entered the story. A lawyer, economist, and future statesman named Leo Mechelin. In 1871, the two men restructured Idestam's business into a public company. They called it Nokia AB. On the surface, this partnership looked simple. Underneath it, there was real friction. Idestam was cautious, an engineer's mind, obsessed with stability and careful margins. Mechelin thought bigger and faster. He understood capital, expansion, and the long game in a way Idestam never fully embraced. And Mechelin was already looking past paper, toward a technology most people still dismissed as an expensive curiosity. Electricity. That quiet tension between caution and ambition would define this company's character for the next 100 years. Idestam eventually stepped back from daily leadership in 1896, but the company he had started refused to sit still. Over the following decades, Nokia kept absorbing new industries, almost like a living organism that refused to specialize in just one thing. In 1898, a rubber company was founded nearby, eventually becoming Finnish Rubber Works, producing tires, industrial rubber, and the rubber boots that entire generations of Finns would associate with the Nokia name for most of the 20th century. Not long after, a cable manufacturer emerged as well, Finnish Cable Works, built around telephone and telegraph lines, at a time when instant long-distance communication still felt like science fiction. Then came the wars. Finland, caught between larger powers through both world wars, pushed every one of these industries to their absolute limit. Rubber for boots and military equipment. Cables for communication. Paper for a nation trying to hold itself together on every front at once. Nokia did not collapse under that pressure. It adapted. The same instinct Idestam had shown decades earlier, standing beside that freezing river. In 1967, the three separate companies, paper, rubber, and cables, formally merged into a single unified corporation, Nokia Corporation. Inside the cable division, something extraordinary had already begun. Engineers were quietly experimenting with an idea that sounded almost impossible, making telephone technology mobile, untethered from any wall, wire, or fixed location. In 1981, Nokia helped launch the Nordic Mobile Telephone Network, one of the very first international cellular systems on Earth. A year later came the Mobira Senator, an early mobile phone heavy enough to double as hand luggage, but revolutionary all the same. A decade after that, the Nokia 1011 arrived, widely regarded as the world's first mass-produced handheld GSM phone. Through the 1990s, Nokia didn't just enter the mobile phone industry, it came to define it. By the late 1990s, it was the best-selling phone brand on the entire planet. Ordinary people who had never heard the words groundwood pulp or hydropower or rubber boot were carrying a direct descendant of that same company in their pocket every single day of their lives. Fredrik Idestam died in 1916, decades before anyone could have imagined a device like that existing at all. But in a strange way, his instinct never left the company he built. Notice the shift before everyone else does. Adapt before you're forced to. Never assume the thing that built you is the thing that will carry you forever. This has been Empire Archives. Every empire begins somewhere unglamorous. A river, a mill, a single stubborn decision made by someone nobody was watching yet. And every empire, no matter how vast it becomes, eventually meets the same fate as the industries it once replaced, overtaken by something newer, faster, and hungrier than itself. Nokia rose from wood pulp to rubber to cables to a phone in nearly half the hands on Earth. And long after the ringtones fade and the devices are forgotten in drawers, the river that gave this company its name will still be running quietly through Finland, exactly as it did in 1865, indifferent to empires and to everything they eventually become.